Hey, what's going on, guys? We just went live. To those watching on YouTube, welcome. Today I'm going to be solving some puzzles on Puzzle Streak. I'm going to be trying to display. I'll be displaying two things on each puzzle. Number one, my raw thought process, what actually goes on in my head, and number two, the blueprint thought process for puzzles where you have not yet acquired the pattern recognition to solve them without actually going through the thought process. And I think what I mean by that will be made a little more clear as we dive into the puzzles. So let's do that immediately. Alright, so I already see the solution. The solution is G3 because this is just a pattern I recognize. I see that the rook is doing a really great job, and the king are doing a really great job at controlling all the squares around the king. This pawn as well. And because of that, I'm like, ooh, danger alert, danger alert. The king is completely entrapped. All we have to do is check it, and if it can't get away, then it's mate. So immediately, my mind is like, oh, G3, HG, HG, and that's mate. So that's how I would solve it. If you don't see that immediately, which if you start out you shouldn't, then what you can do is go through checks, captures, and threats, and the variations of those threats. That's what, everybody recommends checks, captures, and threats. But Judith Polgar's variation of that, funnily enough, is checks, captures, threats, and variations. So her variation is a variation, or to check for variations. What does that mean? Essentially, that means move orders, but that really, it's just thinking about variations of a particular idea, really. But we will not be there yet. First, we start with checks. Okay, what are the checks I have? Well, I have G3, I can move my rook different places, and those are all the checks. Well, a brief look at rook e4, and you kind of have to start somewhere. So don't get too caught up on where to start if you're choosing between what checks, for example. Just go to one, start calculating it. It's fine if it's not the best. One thing that held me back for a long time is that I would worry so much about which move. If I was considering a list of candidate moves, I'd worry so much about which one to start on. At the end of the day, it's more important to just start somewhere than start in what might seem to be a better spot or the best spot. It really takes discipline to do that, and that's something that took me a long time to learn, and it really held me back as a player. So my advice to you, just start somewhere. You see a check, evaluate it, eliminate it, and move on, or choose it. So in this situation, I look at rook e4, and I see that the pawn can simply take it, and now I've lost material, and it doesn't look like the king's getting mated, but for sake of checks, captures, threats, I will continue down the line, look at G3, HG, HG, and then I see that the king can escape. I don't like that. Another thing you can do is ask yourself what the function of every piece is here, and that can help you sift through the lines, or sift through your moves in the best way possible. So if I think about what the function of the rook is, well, I see that here, well, what can any piece really ever do? Any piece in chess, all it ever does is look at squares. All it does is control squares. And then there are mechanics that result from that. So, at a very basic level, this rook is controlling these squares. Okay, how is that significant? And then this pawn is controlling this square. How is that significant? In this situation, controlling a lot of squares around the king. The rook itself is controlling most of the squares around the king. So then that kind of directs my attention. I'm like, I'm already controlling a lot of squares around the king. Okay, with just the rook. Okay, what other squares am I controlling? Holy crap, I'm controlling these squares with my king. Holy crap, I'm controlling this square with my pawn. So now I'm controlling every single square except the one that the king's on. And then I'm like, oh my god, this is almost mate. Is there a way I can just control this square as well without giving up the control of any of my other squares that are important in this situation and get mate? And then I see G3. HG is the only response, and in the resulting position, it's just a mate.
Check.
So that's how I would start. So if you don't immediately recognize the pattern, that's how I would start off. And eventually, you will start to recognize those patterns because this logic that I'm displaying is so powerful in building pattern recognition and sifting
Check.
through unfamiliar positions. All right, in this position again, I don't see a pattern immediately. So I'm just going to start looking at checks, captures, attacks, and let's see if something comes to me. And as I was just talking, something actually already did come to me because I started to kind of subconsciously look at the checks, captures, and attacks. This was the first thing I looked at, and I was just like, okay, that's an option. And then I looked at this, and I was like, oh, wait, you know what? That actually just wins on the spot. And then we
Check.
play that move. And if the rook tries to block, which I saw, then we just take it because our bishop was controlling that square. I shouldn't have gone too far ahead. I wish I could go back. But again, in that position, all I would do if I didn't catch that pattern is I would look at checks, captures, and attacks. All you'd have to do in that puzzle is look at the checks, and you would get there immediately. Okay, so in this position, what is going on? What is my raw thought process? Well, my raw thought process has already solved this puzzle. I see that. So now I will go through my pattern recognition that allowed me to solve this puzzle already. Well, I saw that this queen was really well placed, and I saw that the king is kind of being cornered by the queen. Again, almost all of the king squares are being dominated, with the exception of these two. I'll change these colors. With the exception, no, I don't like that color. Let's do that. With the exception of these two squares. So then I'm like, okay, well, how can I increase my control over these two squares right here? And then immediately what came to me, again, a check. So you don't even have to think like that, like how I just thought about the square control. You can simply look at your checks. Bishop g3 seems like a very promising check, and we calculated the only thing that our opponent can do, since they can't take this bishop, since they can't interpose on f2, they have to move their king. And after they move their king, I play queen f2, and it's simply mate.
Check.
All right, so this is another one that I have solved instantly. The solution is to play rook h3. I've just seen so many of these sorts of puzzles where the king's in the corner, and it's just like a heavy piece, crush fest, and I know to look for these sorts of moves. Again, it's a check, so it makes sense. So yeah, we play rook h3. The only thing the opponent can do is play queen takes, and after we play queen takes, we notice that it's mate because we control all the squares around the king, and the king cannot escape. Okay, so if you're not familiar with that pattern, once again, this is why the checks, captures, threats, and their variations is so powerful. We start looking at checks. Maybe you look at queen h3 check, and then queen takes, rook takes. Okay, that's an option. King g2. Okay, I'm not sure where to go from there. So I'm going to look at other options before I commit so heavily to a line, right? So that's another thing that I need to elaborate on that I have not directly, explicitly addressed is, like I said earlier, you start somewhere. So if there are multiple checks, you've got to evaluate all of those checks, right? So you have to start somewhere. You just start somewhere. Just start somewhere. Wherever your heart takes you, right? My heart took me to rook h3, but maybe your heart can take you to queen h3, maybe queen h2, queen g2, queen takes g1, right? Eventually, you'll learn to filter out the meaningless checks. This is pretty meaningless. I'm not going to explain why. Because I don't think that's very instructive. I think it's far more instructive to display the thought process through which you can arrive at the correct answer. So, with that in mind, so let's just say, okay, I'm thinking about two main ideas. I'm thinking about queen takes h3, about rook takes h3. So then I will just briefly look at each one, evaluate how promising both moves are, each move is, and then choose which one to investigate deeper first. Right? So, and if you don't really know where to start first, at that point, you just have to start somewhere. Just literally pick somewhere, anywhere, It doesn't matter if you're starting at the wrong place. It's not about instantly arriving at the right place. It's about starting somewhere and gradually arriving at the correct place through the proper use of the thought process I'm displaying. So, rook h3. Okay, rook h3, we're controlling all squares in front of the king. The king is mated. Okay, well, mated in the sense that it can't move and nothing can block it. So what's the only other thing that can happen? Well, to take the aggressive piece, or to take the perpetrator, and after queen takes h3, then I just see that I can simply recapture the queen and renew the mating threat. In this case, we go over how can this threat be stopped. There are 3 ways in which a mating attack can be stopped. Number one is to capture the perpetrator. Well, in the resulting position, after my queen is on h3, there's no way to capture the perpetrator. Number 2 is to interpose, blocking the attack. The only square that can be done on in this case is h2, because that's the only square between the king and the queen. I see that no pieces can go over to h2. So then the last thing I ask is, can the king move? Well, no, the king can't move. I'm controlling this square, and this square with my queen, and this square is being blocked by white's own rook. Therefore, this leads directly to checkmate, and we move on. All right, so what does my pattern recognition see in this position? I see that the queen and the rook are lined up very nicely, and I see that I have a way to clear up this connection with tempo. It's very important that my knight is protected by the g4 pawn. Otherwise, after I play knight to f5, queen takes f5 could be deadly. But because there is a pawn here, our knight's protected, and if queen takes, we will simply take back with our rook. If our opponent does anything else to get away from the check, like moving around, then we just take the queen, takes back, and we're very happy. Another noteworthy thing is that if a knight is the one delivering a check or a mating attack, there's no way in which a knight's attack can be interposed, because the knight attacks from above. The knight jumps. Therefore, the knight cannot be blocked in its line of attack, because it doesn't really have a line of attack. We see the arrows displayed as lines, but they should really be displayed as like curvy lines that indicate jump. You would jump over a bishop that blocked it. You would jump over a pawn that blocked it. So when the knight is the aggressor, there's only 2 things that can be done: either take the knight or move the king. That's one reason that knights are so powerful at attacking, and the queen-knight tandem is the most powerful in chess. But more on that later. So you either move the king, and if you move the king, then we take the queen and we're happy. If you take the knight, we take the queen, do a quick material count. We see that we have a queen and a rook versus 2 minors and a rook. So that puts us up +3 in material, and then I don't even count the pawns. I see they're approximately equivalent. Our opponent just has a few more. It's fine. So knight f5 is the move. Again, if you didn't have that pattern recognition of the rook and the queen lined up against each other, no need to fret. You can still solve this puzzle. You just might have to exhaust a few more options before you do so. But again, you list all the checks. Number 1. All right, what are all the checks in this position? There's only one. Knight f5 check. Okay. Then you ask yourself, after knight f5 check, how is the rest of the board affected, right? What squares does the knight give up in moving away from its current post? What squares does the knight gain, in moving to its new post? And finally, what lines are opened and closed by the knight moving to its new post? If you ask yourself this question, you consider the squares, nothing really seems to be important. Then you look at the squares lost, nothing seems to be important. Then you look at lines opened. Oh, it opens this line. And then you're like, oh, wait, so I can take the queen after that. And then that gets you get hooked. That the right idea has sunken its teeth into your mind, and you put yourself on the right track.
Check.
And then you simply do the same thing. You do the threat analysis. So you see, okay, exactly what I did after I identified the pattern in the calculation. You just calculate. Okay. What to do here? Once again, this is the exact same pattern. The rook is in the exact same spot, and the queen is in the exact same spot as last puzzle. So it's the exact same pattern. We can just move our bishop with tempo, and then we win the queen. In the resulting position, we can do a quick material count. No, that's actually bad. I don't even like that. That's just worse for black. So let's just say you move the king away. It also doesn't matter. Bishop d7 is a logical move, so it doesn't really matter. So say the king goes to f8 just to keep more pieces on the board. Then what's the material count? Well, I have a queen, rook, minor, minor, and the opponent has rook, rook, minor, minor. If you think about that, then I have a queen for a rook. That's good. Opponent has quite a few more pawns than us, but they're undeveloped. They're underdeveloped compared to us, where all of our pieces are centralized, and this rook is ready to join the action, as opposed to our opponent, who's the majority of their army in the final position will need to be developed still. So we're completely fine there. We're completely fine.
Check.
What? Okay, so the first thing I'm looking at, I don't see the solution, but my pattern recognition is like, hey, you should just play rook h3. Rook h3 create some serious threats. My king is essentially keeping this king off, and so if the king tries to escape, then we just come in with mate supported by our queen. If pawn takes, then our queen comes in, and the same thing happens, and that's all that can be done. So that's just the solution.
Check.
And do either of these work? Oh, this is actually, yeah. That's cool. This is a puzzle in which there are two solutions, at least, maybe even three solutions. Ooh, this one's quirky.
Check.
That's cool. I love Lichess because of that. Chess.com never has puzzles that have multiple solutions, but Lichess oftentimes does, though it seems that on Lichess the multiple solutions tend to be more trivial, which is upsetting, but reasonable, and still fun. It's still fun to recognize the multiple solutions and play what you think the coolest one is. So that's just what I did. Okay, and this solution, puzzle solution, whatever you want to call it. First thing I notice is that the rook is hanging on d8. I can take it with check. Not only that, but my rook is covering the h file. The queen is on g7. That means the king is tied down to the back rank. Therefore, the only move in that position that black has is queen f8, and I then notice I can slide my rook down to h8, force the king away from the queen, and then we just win the queen. So, yeah. Oh, wait, but the king could go to g7. Wait a second. So queen d8, queen f8. Oh, yeah. Because not only does rook h8 attract the king, but if the king doesn't take it, then it's a skewer of the king and the queen. Yeah. So no matter what,
Check.
We win the queen.
Check.
All right. So in this position, I actually don't see the solution. A few things. We have mutual hanging queens. Materially, we're equal. We're equal pawns, equal pieces, so completely equal in material. The only imbalance is that I've got 3 pawns over here. Opponent has 2, so I have the queen side majority. Opponent has a king side majority. Doesn't really matter for this puzzle, though. So I'm just looking, what are the options? Well, checks, captures, attacks. Because I don't see the solution, I'm going to look for checks, captures, attacks. Though my intuition is heavily inclined to believe it's something to do with the mutual hanging queens, because, I mean, how could it not be, right? So, with the mutual hanging queens... Oh, wait. I understand the solution. So, as long as my queen doesn't get trapped, if I take on g6, knight takes g6, rook takes g6, we go up a full minor piece in that position. As long as my rook doesn't get trapped there, then I should be fine. And I don't think it'll ever get trapped because I'll be able to play f4 and... Wait a second. Okay, so rook g6. So rook g6, winning the queen. So our opponent is forced to make this move. Knight g3, rook g3. If then bishop d6, trying to trap my rook, which my rook seems really trappable because the opponent has 2 bishops and my rook is stuck. But after after bishop d6, we just have f4, and after g5, we just play rook takes. So we're fine. And the nice thing to know is that even if our rook got trapped, it would be a trade of a minor piece for a rook. So that's an exchange. But if you consider the initial position, I won a whole minor piece. So the total net transaction is 2 minor pieces for a rook. Because pawns are equal, everything else is equal, that benefits me. Pretty significantly. It's 1 point of material mathematically, but in a dynamic position like that, it's far better to have 2 minor pieces for a rook, because the 2 minor pieces give you so much more piece activity than a single rook can. Rooks really only shine, not only, rooks clearly shine in the end game when there's just when your main objective is pushing pawns to promote to a queen. That's when rooks really shine, because they just allow you to shove your pawns forward. If you're in a dynamic position with a lot of pieces on the board and there are no immediate prospects of pushing pawns and no immediate way to force a situation in which you can start pushing pawns, then rooks lose a lot of their luster, because it's much harder to function with them. Rook takes on f4, protecting our guy on f6. So we're chilling. Again, you'd look at checks, captures, attacks. Maybe for many of you guys, the first thing you'd look at is rook d8. Okay, great. So rook d8, rook d8. What now? Okay, checks. I see knight f6 and then king g7. Okay, checks. I have knight e8, but that doesn't seem to do anything. I mean, king h8, I'm out of checks. Captures look pretty dry. Oh, wait, but there's this hanging knight. Maybe if I kept this rook, then I'd be able to capture it. Knight f6.
Check.
Also, guys, there is no substitute for experience. There is no substitute for experience. Just marinate on that for a little bit.
Check. 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 Check.
What is going on here? Oh, okay. I think we check here. King is forced here, and then we do that move.
Check.
Do that maneuver. We come here. Yeah.
check, check,
And then you're getting mated. Wait, I was supposed to explain these. I was supposed to. Fuck. Sorry. Okay, so checks, captures, attacks. Yes? Checks. What are my checks? Bishop b5, queen a4. That's it. Those are your only options, okay? So let's look at bishop e5, bishop e5, bishop d7, takes, queen takes. Any checks? No. Any captures? No. Besides knight e5, okay, so knight e5, de5. Any checks? No. Captures? No. Okay, nothing's really going on. Le Gireg. Thanks for the follow, and let me know if I can improve my pronunciation on that. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. Now that I know people are watching, I gotta be extra instructive. Extra instructive. Smates. Smart. Please elaborate. Le Gireg. Okay, so bishop b5, I don't really see anything there. Maybe there's something there, but I don't know. So then we move on, okay? We move on to queen a5, and then we go, ooh. We got that bishop, but not too fast, right? Because oftentimes black has the response to bring a knight off to c6, which blocks the check and blocks the check and guards the bishop. In this case, we're guarding c6. So the sample line would go queen a5, knight c6, takes. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're up a minor piece. What does our opponent have? Does our opponent have any unexpected counterplay in their position? And then we do a quick look. They have like one check, and it's just a check that helps us develop, so we're chilling.
check,
Okay, sorry, just checking chat. Okay, so Legureg, if you didn't catch the very beginning when I started streaming, what I'm trying to do is solve every puzzle every puzzle in two ways. Number one is to demonstrate my raw thought process, what's actually going on inside of my head as an experienced player, and number two, how it would look like for an inexperienced player in order to get to where I am, because this is exactly what I did. Sub to Terry Roblox, thanks for the follow as well. Drop a follow on your alt, and you gotta go. Hey, thanks so much, I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day or night or whatever time it is where you are. Thanks so much, I appreciate it. Okay, so back to the position. So, in the position, what's going on? What is going on? All right, first, let's count the material. We got a rook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns. Our opponent has rook, knight, and 7 pawns. So, what do? We gotta win some material, all right? But how do we win material? We got two ways to do it, So, checks, captures, attacks. Checks, captures, threats, whatever you want to call it. CCTV. Checks, captures, threats, and their variations. All right? So, following that principle, if there is someone in chat, I will give you 10 seconds to propose the first candidate move following the principle of CCTV. All right, no takers. That first candidate move is rook takes h2 check, the only check in the position and one of the only captures in the position. Seems pretty promising. All right. What do we got going for us in that position? Well, king to g1 is forced, and this is actually kind of a difficult puzzle for a lot of people, because this is where an inefficient implementation of checks of CCTV can go wrong. Because if you don't know how to consider your options and how to commit to a line or choose temporarily to not commit to a line and move on to something else, you can get really stuck in these sorts of positions because the solution to this puzzle requires a quiet move. And quiet move, I mean, on chess.com, on Lichess, the quiet move is actually a motif of a puzzle because it can be really difficult, such that they both decided to make a motif on it. And even before them, quiet move is no foreign term to any chess professional. It's been in the industry, I say, for a long time. So, rook takes h2 check, king g1, and then we look at checks. All right, what are only two checks? There are only two checks in the position: rook g2 and rook h1. Okay, they both look interesting. Let's look at rook takes g2, king g2, and now checks in that position. We don't have any. Dang. All right, what have we accomplished in that position? Absolutely nothing productive, and we've changed for no reason. Our only compensation in that is that we have created a pass pawn by eliminating this pawn, but this pass pawn will quickly be eaten up. So, 1 second. Got a text, got to respond to. Now I need to check my phone for a work thing. Alright, give me like 5 more seconds. Okay, sorry about that. Gotta respond to stuff, Okay, so rook h2 check. Where was I? I was talking about CCTV and the downfalls, especially when quiet moves are involved. Okay, so how do we avoid those downfalls? First of all, what is the most typical downfall? The most typical downfall is going through a line that looks promising and calculating the checks, maybe even some captures that look promising, and then not seeing anything unequivocally making progress or winning tactically. So then you start banging your head and you start looking at other checks, maybe down the line, other captures down the line, or maybe you go with a completely different first move. You go through everything, you're like, I don't know what's going on, this check doesn't seem to work, that check doesn't seem to work, and you're just bouncing between these checks and these captures. Maybe you're also briefly looking at attacks, but attacks are hard because they're abstract, right? So it's like, I don't know, like I don't think I have any attacks. And then you are banging your head. Very often in that situation, the reason that you're banging your head is because you're missing a quiet move. So if you find yourself in that position, you can use this newfound knowledge that, hey, maybe if I find myself in a position where I'm like, this doesn't work, this doesn't seem to work, just, spend an extra moment looking for quiet moves. And oftentimes, you'll find some promising ideas that will often be the solution. So in this position, let me demonstrate what that might look like. First of all, so let me demonstrate what that might look like. I'll look at rook takes h2 check, king g1, and then I'll look at the checks. We already looked at rook g2. Okay, so let's look at rook h1. If rook h1, we force king h1, and then checks after that is rook h8, and then king g1. We're in the same exact position as we were before. So what's going on? Okay, what other ideas are there? There's taking this pawn. Okay. Or taking with the pawn. Okay. I like that because it completely encloses the king. But then in order to exploit that, I'd need to get a rook on the back rank. There are no additional open files. It's not clear at all how I would go about opening one. Okay, I don't think that can be it. I don't know. Maybe it is it. Maybe I'm missing something. But it's at that point that you should kind of move on. Where it's just things don't really seem to be connecting. Just move on. Just move on. You can always come back to it, but just move on. Chances are there's another additional idea that you're missing that, number one, could be combined with the thing you're banging your head on, or number two is just completely different and you should use that instead. In both scenarios, the new idea is valuable. So we should go look for new ideas before we start banging our head too much on one or a few ideas that we're kind of laser focusing on. You never really want to laser focus in chess. More often, you want to, do kind of a what's called a breadth first search. So I'm not even going to go there. Jesus Christ. Okay. I'm going way off track. Okay, so what should that look like? That should look like rook h2. And then, I don't know, we looked at both of those checks. They're not looking good. Okay, so then captures. All right, there aren't any additional captures that are checks that we haven't looked at. Maybe there's this move, but I think we can all kind of just, I don't know, like it doesn't seem to go anywhere. Okay, so now we move on to attacks. Things that are not a check, not a capture, but maybe do something or add pressure to the position. After we do that, we're like, okay, this is the only open file in the position. So if I want to activate more pieces, then maybe I bring my other rook onto the file and I play rook 8 to h8. And okay, another note is that oftentimes quiet moves are just moves that are good in principle, moves that improve the quality of a piece you might have. So rook h2, king g1, and rook h8. Rook 8 to h8 is a quiet attacking move to consider. What might some others be? Honestly, I don't see any others in this position. Okay, so then I'll spend a little bit of time on rook 8 to h8. Does it do anything? Oh my god, it kind of does do something. What does it do? Well, the king is tied down to the back rank. Rook 8 to h8 supports our other rook to come to h1. If our rook lands on h1, then it's a back rank checkmate. Even better, if the king tries to move out of the way to avoid mate, then once we play, what's going on here? Oh, okay. Sorry. Should probably just quit my messages. Quit my messages. And oh wow, if the king tries to get out of that mate threat, then we play rook h1 anyway. King e2 is forced, and boom, we take the other rook. Skewer, baby. That puts us up a rook. We ain't gonna have no problems winning that game. And then you're like, oh wow, okay, everything's connecting. There's an idea there, but we have to make sure that it's robust. How do we make sure it's robust? Well, we think about the forcing or the threatening nature of the move. Okay. What is the threatening nature? Well, we've already recognized this back rank pattern, so we create a mate threat, which is very strong and very forcing, even though rook d8, rook 8 to d8, excuse me, is a quiet move. Oh, we can also say rook d to d8. In fact, that's what it would say in notation, because normally you prioritize the file before you go to the rank, so it'd actually be rook d to h8, but both are semantically correct. So after rook h1, notice I just say rook h1 because it's only possible for one of them to go there, we have a mate threat. So you have to avoid the mate threat, or you have to create a counter attack of your own that mates. because you have to create a counter mate threat, bro. Okay, how are you going to do that? Your pieces are so trash. They're so uncoordinated. You can't... Oopsies.
Check.
Gotta get back. And there is no way to do that. I need to turn that scrolling thing off on
Check.
chess.
Check.
I do like to
Check.
hear that, though. Okay. So
Check.
we play the solution. It's this quiet move, rook d to h8. Because it creates a mate threat immediately. Rook takes g3 was a way to stop the mate threat, but it neglects to address the secondary threat of the position, which is still the same move, but it's a different idea. This time it's a skewer motif. King f2 is forced, like we said, and then rook takes h1. We up a rook, baby. No complaints, and we win. Easy money. Alright. So, what do we got going on in this position? Well, I noticed this motif immediately, but I'm going to count the material. So this is my raw thought process. Alright, I'm going to count the material. I see minor, rook, and then some pawns. I got minor, rook, some pawns. Okay, approximately equivalent. So then I see this forks. I notice that I can just do that. The king moves over somewhere. Don't really give a crap where. It takes, and then I win material. And then I'm just looking for counterplay. Okay, well, this bishop's kind of hemmed in. Not too great. Rooks, again, can't really do anything. I think I'll have time to play knight f3 castles. I'm chilling.
Check.
So then I know that to be the solution.
Check.
Oopsies. Oh, I forgot to explain how you would go about that, though. But it's always the same. Checks, captures, threats, and their variations. Always the same. The only thing that's hard about that is knowing what lines to continue on and what lines to stop and move on from. And that's really what I was hoping to display. But anyway, in this puzzle, the first thing I notice is that the king has absolutely no squares to its name, except the one it's on, which it must have by definition. So the king has no squares to its name. I also noticed this knight, which is the sexiest piece on the board, centralized on that good e5 square. If it was on any of these squares, it would be amazing. In particular, these two, because these start to creep into the opponent's territory. Notice how these ones are in the opponent's territory. These ones are in I should do that with green. Our territory. Opponent's territory. Right? So these two I like because they're in opponent's territory, and generally we're always going to cause more damage as a knight if we're in our opponent's territory, because then we go bang, 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 bang all up in our opponent's grill. And if we were here, it's a similar story. We're just less deep, really. We go bang, 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 but we're a little less deep. We're a bit further from the king. Very promising still, but I like my knight here a little better, especially in this position where we coordinate with the bishop on f7. Alright, in this position, another common motif in this game we call chess is square convergence. What does this ever so fancy and mysterious term equate to in practical terms of the game? Well, it's just squares on which are pieces. You could also call it mutual square control, and I think that clarifies it a little bit, because we look at our pieces, and then we look at the squares that they both control in the opponent's territory. In this position, I believe there's only one instance of mutual square control, and if we just trace the bishop's lines and we trace the knight's lines, we just see where they intersect. Oh, this is the only square where they intersect, f7. Oh my god, f7 is a weak square, being controlled only once, well, we control it twice. Bada bing, bada boom. You can't get out here because my knight controls the square. This is instant mate. How do you find this? Checks, captures, threats. Maybe you look at bishop e5, and then you see that, this can happen. Okay, maybe there's something there. bishop takes. Oh, holy shit, queen takes. And then we win the queen. Easy game, easy money, easy life tactics. No. You can never assume that a gain in material means that you're winning. You always have to look at the final resulting position. And in this one in particular, we notice a very key feature. Where's my queen, bro? It was just taken. Bro. I have to respond to this. Okay, we look at that final position and we're like, oh shit, we're actually not up material there because we don't got no queen. Oh man, but this looks so good. I just want to make it work. But then you realize, wait, I mean, like knight c6 is the only other way to do it, and it's the same position. We just like get one pawn more. And then we're like, shit. Queen blocks, we take it. King takes. Oh, Jesus Christ. King takes. We take. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, and boom. We're only up a singular pawn. Well, is that the tactic? Is that what they want me to do? Stop laser focusing. If at all you find yourself in doubt of the move, or you're just like, oh, this move just feels so right, I want to make it work, blah, 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 blah. Zoom out. What time is it? Oh, damn it. It's 10. Wait, I need to check on something. Okay. So, you ask yourself, wait, what was I saying? You just zoom out. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like, I just want to make it work, it just feels right, it seems right, it's got to be the solution. No. As soon as you hear yourself thinking that, you have to shift your mindset to, oh, okay, what are my additional options? Because oftentimes, you get too emotionally attached to a particular move, a particular sequence, or a particular idea that you're inclined naturally to invest all of your energy into that because you have that emotional attachment. What you need to do is look for other options as well. Oftentimes, one idea is not enough. You need multiple, and you need to combine them in some way. Or you could just be on the wrong boat altogether, and you want to calibrate that. You want to make sure that there are other attractive boats to hop onto in order to, well, you want to make sure there are other boats to hop onto to see like just what other options are. What are the options? That's the question you gotta ask yourself. Alright, so then, okay, if I ask myself what are the options, I'm like, oh wait, this is another check. Oh fuck, that's me.
Check.
And then you just play it, you know? Okay, so my raw thought process in this position goes something like that.
Check.
Damn it. I need to not play the last move. Okay, my raw thought process in this position, I am actually stuck here. I don't see the solution. I notice that this will be hanging, but I'm just looking for things that could go wrong. Because this is a level 19. This is level 19, or this is level 20, because we've completed 19. This just feels a bit too obvious. So I'm just looking, I'm just being like, okay, now let's just assume that rook f5 has been played. Now let's pretend to be the opponent. Okay, the opponent asks, what are my options? and then you see, oh wait, they have rook h1 threatening rook h8, checkmate. Oh shooterooski, can I stop that? Is if you learn to put yourself in the shoes of your opponent, in situations like this where you're like testing moves for yourself, you'll become such a stronger player. Because I feel like a lot of people will be like, like rook f5 looks great. I don't know, maybe it's trappy, but I don't see anything better, and it just wins a piece, doesn't it? And then you're like, okay, blunder check, blunder check, blunder check. Okay, I'm fine, and you play it, and then you get it wrong. That's because you didn't put yourself in the shoes of your opponent. You did ask maybe how your opponent, like you did ask yourself, how might this be a blunder, which is in a way putting yourself in your opponent's shoes, but not completely. That's only partial. To put yourself in your opponent's shoes properly, you have to pretend to be your opponent. That sounds very obvious, but in the fictitious scenario that I just constructed, that wasn't actually the case, as obvious as it sounds. So how might we improve this? Well, just like I said before, assume rook f5 has been played. Now assume that the puzzle is white to play, essentially. And literally go from there. Okay, white to play after rook f5. Checks, I ain't got none. Captures, I ain't got none. Threats, oh shit, I've got rook h1. That looks like a really good move. Okay, now we flip it again. So rook f5, rook h1. And now it's black's turn. The puzzle switches to black to play. And then you do the exact same thing. Alright, what are my moves here, bro? Oh shoot, I'm about to get mated. Okay, I've got to get out of that mate. How do I get out of that? Oh my god, I play f6. Alright, what does f6 look like? Because that still looks pretty scary. I play f6, rook h8, king f7, and boomarooski, g7 equals queen check. And you're like, oh shit. Shit. You ain't coming back from that. You ain't coming back from that. So, rook f5, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Okay, is there a way I can control the h8 square? I don't think so. So instead of continuing to bang my head, I'm going to ask, okay, what are my options? First, I'll ask, what are my options in general? So, like, in starting position. And I notice, like, I can bring my knight forward, maybe. I also notice that, hey, wait a second. Maybe I shouldn't be fixating on this bishop, because 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns versus 4 pawns. Rook, rook minor, rook, rook minor. Materials equal. Wait, so I actually don't have to like win a whole piece to be chilling here. Maybe it's as simple as activating my other rook and scooping up pawns. Maybe it's as simple as bringing my knight up. Maybe it's as simple as playing f6 prophylactically. And then I'm just letting these options marinate in my head. Letting them marinate. Maybe it's playing rook b8 prophylactically. No. second. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Yo, now we're getting somewhere. King goes away, boom, boom. Take the pawn. All of that, and then we go up material. Boomerooski.
check, check,
And just like that, we solve a really hard puzzle. By putting ourselves in our opponent's shoes when we view it as necessary, and if we truly, truly put ourselves in our opponent's shoes, then we as our opponent are putting our opponent in our... We as our opponent are putting ourselves in our opponent's shoes. So you literally become your opponent. And when you become your opponent, when you have to put yourself in your opponent's shoes, you become your opponent. But after 2 times, it's canceled out. And now you are back to yourself. But you keep going like this in the line. You actually embody your opponent. That's what it's about. And that's what everybody doesn't understand. And which is why they can't put themselves in their opponent's shoes. Because they're not actually doing it. They're caring about themselves, their ideas. It's only natural. Everybody does it when they start out. It's something you have to acknowledge, something you have to grow out of. I noticed 3 things, right? 3 things right off the bat. Rook hanging with check, knight hanging, king kind of getting its squares taken away from itself. So the first thing I'm looking at is, what if I just do that? If the king tries to attack me, then I just move away with check, and then I take. Okay, that's easy.
check, check,
Alright, in this position, I'm looking at the juicy light squares that I'm controlling. I see that the opponent's king can only oscillate between these 2 squares, so I'm looking at things like that. I also see that there are pieces flying everywhere. Maybe there are mates looming, maybe there are just like hanging pieces looming. Maybe we can play bishop h7. Alright, so I'm like starting to digest the position. I also see my bishops really strong. Okay, cool. I see my opponent creating threats. Okay, cool. Wait, this is scary. This is like a pin. I heard about that pin thing. That pin thing is scary, especially when there's like 3 pieces putting pressure on a spot that is not defended at all, except by my lone king, which clearly is insufficient and will probably get me killed. Alright, well, shit. Maybe I need to find a counterattack then. Maybe I should fight fire with fire, be aggressive and be aggressive. So after we do that, okay, checks, captures, attacks. We understand the nature of the position. We're going to get mated if we don't address this situation or counterattack. The first thing I always like to do is look for counterattacks. I feel like that's just the most in the spirit of the game, how you should play the game. And yeah. And if we don't find any counterattacks that we like, only then do we go to responding to our opponent's ideas. We want to try as hard as we can to ignore and outmuscle our opponent's ideas. But inevitably, there will be times where we can't do that. In such positions, we will have to then try to stop their ideas. But, you know, I see some attacking potential here. So first thing I'm doing is I am looking at the ways that I can attack my opponent. Right off that bat, though, I'm seeing bishop h7 because my rook controls the f-file. I'm dominating the juicy light squares. Only thing that the opponent can do is play king h8. In that position, after king h8, the king is completely encircled with no squares to its name. Knight g6 ends the game almost on the spot. The only thing we have to look out for is now the connection between our queen and our bishop has been severed by our voracious knight. So king takes h7 is the only legal move in the position. Okay, great. That's hella forcing. What now? Well, we see our knight and our queen lined up on this king. I see potential for double check. Anytime there's a double check, I'm going to be like, ooh, that's going to discount me some time, discount double check. I'm going to look at knight f8. That's the only double check. See what it does. Okay, knight f8 double check. King's got to move. Only place the king can move is g7 or h8. Regardless of which square you go to, my knight and queen now coordinate in a way such that h7 is a square under mutual control of my queen and my knight. My knight is being supported by my rook. Queen h7 is mate. Ends the game on the spot. Sorry for the messy board, but
check,
you know, it's easier when you visualize in your
check,
head. So
check, check.
nice little double check, discount double check going on here. Alright, I think I'll finish off with this one, and then I will resume tomorrow. And I'm probably gonna not post this to YouTube. I'll probably refine this, because I know I got very scatterbrained, that's just me. I'll refine it and figure out how I can convey the material that I want to in a more concise manner, and I'll probably end up posting that to YouTube as a video. This will be on YouTube as a stream, but I just want a nice clean video. I don't think this is it yet, though I do think this is still very instructive if you pay close attention and follow along. Not necessarily with solving the puzzle, just following along, trying to absorb the key ideas that I am so graciously giving to you. Alright. Material count. Well, okay, to be true, the first thing I saw is that there was queen e6, and that these light squares are looking a little vacant, maybe a little weak. Alright. After that, I'm like, ooh, queen e6 seems pretty good. Maybe there's a follow-up. Let me count the material, kind of figure out where. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Minor, 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 rook, rook, queen. Minor, 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 rook, rook, queen. Alright. Material is approximately equivalent. And queen e6. Alright. Queen e6, king g8. Or sorry, king h8 or rook f7 are only moves. Okay, well, we know rook f7 loses on the spot due to rook c8. And if queen c8, queen c8. And if nothing, then the queen is pinned to the king. If rook f8, then it's too late. We play rook d8, and either rook d8 or bishop d8, we're chilling. Alright, that means that king h8 is the only move available to our opponent in the position. So now I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. This bishop looks pretty juicy. Alright, so rook c8, queen c8, and then I scoop up the bishop. Alright, in that position, I'm up. I win a bishop, a whole bishop. So I'm like, alright, that feels pretty good, but I can't stop there. I have to look at the final position, I have to visualize it in my head, and I have to see, does my opponent have any opportunity for dynamic play, right? Can my opponent just treat this loss of a bishop like a gambit and be successful at it? After I answer that question, can I only accept or reject this bishop, maneuver to win the bishop? Alright, so visualize with me, please. Queen e6 check, king h8, rook takes c8, queen takes c8, queen takes e7. My queen is here, my opponent's queen is here, this guy's not on the board. Those are the only things you have to visualize. Another thing, and this will be a little tiny spiel, is that some people are just like, like I have to be able to like close my eyes and see the position in my head, and I'm nowhere near doing that. Like I suck at this game. Hikaru and those people can like just see the board in their head. There's so much better. Okay, screw that train of thought. That's not how you need to think. You don't need to be able to see the board in your head to be a god at chess. You don't need to be able to see the board in your head to be a 2000 rated player, right? Don't worry about it. All right, all you have to do, this is a secret, you just say it's like 2 moves ahead, right? In this case, it's like 2 moves ahead, like 4 ply. So like 4 moves ahead if you're thinking about each half move as a move, right? Because, this stupid arrow. So queen e6, king h8, rook c8, queen c8. That has, 4 pieces have moved. Okay, so we can consider that four-ply, right? Like most of the position is similar. So all you have to do is imagine this position, just the position that the puzzle gave you, and simply compare to the new position. And just all you have to do is hold the changes in your head. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be able to visualize the entire new position. You just have to visualize the changes in your head. And that will lead you to perfect visualization. Yeah. So, queen e6, once again, king h8, rook c8, queen c8. I'm going to take the arrows off. Then queen e7, of course. Alright, well, it's our opponent's turn, so we put ourselves in the shoes of our opponent. Alright, what do I got going on? Well, I'm attracted to queen c2. Queen c2, forking these guys, or like skewering these guys. Huh. Well, okay, actually it's not a skewer because this rook is defending the bishop, so I just moved the knight. F1 seems possible. I don't like how it's passive. Alright, let's look at them counterattacks though. I don't really see any counterattacks from the white perspective. Okay, so now back to black. Knight f1. Okay, knight f1. Maybe it's a necessary evil. Maybe I have to play it. All right, what next? Now I put myself in the black perspective. Checks. There are no checks. Captures. There are some captures. None of them look good. Okay, attacks, hanging pieces. There are no hanging pieces. Alright, now the only other thing I need to consider are moves like that bring this bishop into play, or maybe that bring this knight into play. This knight can't go fucking anywhere. Alright, it can only come in if you make this pawn break, and pawn breaks are just a bit slower in general. Maybe there's this fork that's looming. Oh wait, but my knight's on f1, so maybe, oh, does this bishop get trapped? No, it has h4. What about this bishop? Oh wait, that bishop's dead. Alright, and that's how you visualize. And then you're like, okay, the opponent has no checks, their captures are futile, they have no ways to bring in their pieces, improve their activity, all they have is this pawn break. Is this pawn break scary? Hell no. Alright, so then we go for it.
Check.
And there you go, solution. Alright, like I said, I'm cutting it there for tonight. I will resume tomorrow, and I hope to deliver the ideas I'm trying to convey in a more concise way, less scatterbrained, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, this I think the primary purpose of this 1 hour stream was for me to just kind of spill out what I wanted to spill. Think of it like a rough draft for an essay. This was my rough draft of my essay, and tomorrow I will refine it and I will edit it. I will make a new video based on the ideas shared in here and deliver it in a more concise manner. So that is it for today. I hope that I was able to communicate some useful ideas that you can try out yourself and master them. They're fundamental.